Let's talk to Ronnie Chopra. He's the Chief Global Strategist for Horizon Stockbrokers. Very good morning to you, Ronnie.
Good morning.
Right, in this segment we've got three topics to talk about. Let's start with the Centrica chart. That looks like a stinker to me.
And that's all thanks to Mr. Corbyn.
Right.
In case a Labour government, heaven forbid, comes in and he's in charge with his Chancellor, and they're adamant on nationalising these companies. But a lot of bad news is factored into Centrica. The shares, as we can see in the chart, have halved in the last 12 months. The shares are currently trading on a ridiculously low price-earnings ratio of 7 and have a yield of 9%.
Wow.
Which is
the dividend
unthinkable. Safe? That's the $64,000 question. Is it safe? For the time being, perhaps. Centrica owns British Gas, the utility provider, giving all the heating to us in the UK. And so you'd think that a company like this should not really halve. It's pretty much, you've got to have gas. When it's cold, you need heating. You need to cook. And it's baffling to see the shares this low. And they've been a perennial bid target for a number of years. And obviously, with the shares languishing at pretty much a 15-year low, even with the threat of a Labour government, which I personally don't think will happen because people aren't that stupid. I hope anyway. The shares are extremely attractively priced, and so much negative news is factored in. So I think at this level, especially for a foreign predator with the pound so low against the euro, let's say a German utility company or an Italian one could pick them up for next to nothing.
Okay, so we've got these in our portfolio?
I think so. And also, sorry to have interrupted you, they have a market cap at the moment of £7 billion, and the turnover is £28 billion.
Right.
4 times their market cap, which is quite incredible.
Okay, so we like that story. Let's talk about a story you don't like so much. The Dow Jones, I think it's had 5 winning sessions. What are we all complaining about?
I mean, look at that chart.
Extraordinary.
The severity of the fall in the last couple of weeks is just incredible. In 2017, we barely had triple-digit moves, and it was pretty much one way. In the last month or so, people have seen that the Dow does actually go down sometimes.
Yep.
And the speed of the fall has astounded many, including myself. We've had, even this week, when the CPI figures came out on Wednesday, the index fell 300 points within minutes. And it's pretty impossible to trade something like that. And then it eventually closed up. And since Wednesday, the Dow has gone up 1,000 points, which is, around 4 or 5%. We're still having these kind of roller coaster ride with the Dow. And I think the volatility is still going to catch a lot of people out. And I can see some more negativity. Whether we see the lows that we've seen in the last few weeks, whether the Dow has recovered about 6 or 7% from the fall, is debatable. But I still think that with the onset of rate hikes in the US and the 10-year Treasury at close to 3%, that's obviously cause for concern. And I don't know if, with all this volatility, if there is going to be more downside, but I think we're obviously in a period of volatility.
Yep.
One day it goes up 200-300 points, the next day it goes down 200-300 points. It's kind of flushing the retail investors out. And I think that amongst the global indices, this does still seem rather overstretched, because since Donald Trump got elected, the index is still up some 35 to 40%. So some profit taking is inevitable. And, it's good also, a little bit of profit taking, and maybe we'll go higher, but I think for the next few weeks or so, we've got some downside.
Understood. Okay, so let's wrap up with something you do like, the Ibex, which is the Spanish indices. What are you thinking here?
Well, again, obviously they've had problems too with all the global indices recently, as we can see in the chart. That's a pretty severe fall.
Yeah.
But there's value in the Ibex. It's on a much lower price-earnings ratio than the Dow, around 11 or 12. Concerns are obviously the Catalonia element, whereby I think the population is something like 15% of the whole of Spain, but they provide 20% of GDP. But having said that, a lot of bad news is factored into the Ibex. And with a growth rate of 3% forecast for 2018, I think there's a decent chance of recovery. Also, going back a few years, back in 2007, just over 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, this index was trading at 15,000. Today we're at 10,000.
Right.
So it's gone down by a third, which is, pretty severe. And the economy is in a much better shape than it was in the last few years. But I don't think that's kind of reflected in the index at the moment. So even if there is a fall in the markets, I think this one should not fall as much. And on the safe side, one could do a pairs trade by going short perhaps the Dow and long the Ibex.
On that note, a pairs trade.
A pairs
Ronnie,
trade.
thank you very much indeed.